I'm Ashley Billingsley, and you're listening to PC3 Radio. Stay tuned, because next up is my brand new show, Histories and Mysteries. And guys, I promise this first song won't take centuries. Okay, hello. That first song was Centuries by Fall Out Boy. And now, once again, I'm Ashley Billingsley, your host. Welcome to Histories and Mysteries. Okay, now listen. I know some of you might be thinking, history's boring, history's not fun. But trust me, this is not your everyday history radio show. In fact, there's also some mysteries sprinkled in, such as the story of Pompeii, Greek mythology, historic criminals and their stories, and so much more. First up, we're going to start with a little thing I like to call Echoes of the Past. Today's edition of Echoes of the Past is the story of what really happened at one of my favorite historical sites, none other than Pompeii. Pompeii, a catastrophic disaster that a lot of people know about, and I'm sure you've probably heard about it as well. On August 24th, AD, Mount Vesuvius awoke. 5 miles away sat the city of Pompeii, completely unaware of what was going to happen. Large amounts of volcanic pumice, hot gases, and ash went up about 9 miles into the atmosphere. Considering the eruption was believed to happen around noon, you would assume that the sun would be out and shining, but due to the explosion, the city of Pompeii was in darkness. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I cannot imagine it being like 1 to 2 in the afternoon and the sky being completely dark. Like, that would be insane. Now, Pompeii originally was found in 1599 when an Italian, okay, so I'm not going to pronounce his name right, but it's D'Amico Fontana, something like that. He was digging a water channel when he came across the ruins. But the ruins of Pompeii somehow were forgotten about and rediscovered by a group of explorers around 1748. The explorers were astounded, as I'm sure everyone would be, to discover that under the ash and dust, most of the buildings were still intact, and the people's bodies were stuck in a statue-like appearance. It was believed that around 12,000 people lived in Pompeii, and over 2,000 are believed to have died. That's about 17% of the population, which genuinely is crazy. The percentage might not seem like a lot, but trust me when I say that's still a lot of people. On toursitaly.com, I found some interesting facts about Pompeii. Starting off, the residents of Pompeii had no idea that the volcano even was a volcano. They just thought it was a regular old mountain. Next up is the fact that some people in Pompeii were killed instantly by the heat of the eruption. What some people don't know is that the volcano actually erupted again in 1944. But of course it wasn't as powerful during Pompeii, but it still sadly killed 26 people. But now Italian authorities are always monitoring the volcano's activity. Plus, there are very strict evacuation procedures in place to keep many people safe. Pompeii has always been fascinating to me. Like, I remember as a kid I'd read like Magic Treehouse books. I know that was a really popular book series back then. Hopefully some of you have read it. It was like my childhood. But I love history a lot, especially like other countries and everything. And while I know history isn't for everyone, it's still one of my favorite topics, and I find it very, very interesting. Now, while we're on the topic of Pompeii, your next song is going to be Pompeii by Bastille. That last song was Pompeii by Bastille. Now, that song really had an amazing beat, and of course, gotta love it because, like, Pompeii. So now, moving on to another part of, like, the history aspect. Now, I'm sure I'm not the only one here who, like, had a phase in middle school where you were absolutely obsessed with Greek mythology. I know for me, like, it was a big part of my middle school was just, like, Greek mythology this, Greek mythology that. Well, welcome to Deities, Demigods, and Daring Tales, Greek Mythology Edition. Today we're going to be talking about the story of Hades and Persephone. Alright, so first off, I'm going to give you guys just a little bit of background information. So first off, Hades was the god of the underworld, so he ruled the underworld as like a king of sorts, and he decided the fates of the recently deceased. So due to him living in the underworld, no one really thought much of him. He was kind of lonely because, like, who would want to visit the underworld, I guess. But the most important background information is the fact that he ruled over the dead. That'll be important for later. Now, for Persephone. She was the daughter of Demeter, the goddess of nature. Persephone herself was the goddess of spring, and she was still technically a younger goddess at the time she met Hades. So now one day, Hades decided to leave the underworld and come to Earth, just on like a little adventure, because why not? On the same day, Demeter brought down her daughter, Persephone, to Earth. She was gathering flowers in a field when Hades first saw her. For him, it was love at first sight. After only seeing Persephone once and not even talking to her, he had come up with a plan to capture her. He talked to his brother Zeus, god of like lightning, and the two devised a plan. A little bit later, while Persephone was gathering flowers yet again, the ground split open. From the crack in the earth arose Hades. He grabbed Persephone and took her hostage. Demeter was absolutely devastated because she had no idea what happened to her daughter. She just went poof. So Demeter had heard from Helios, god of the sun, about what had happened. But Helios told her that they seemed like they would be a good match. So here's the thing. It doesn't matter that they would be a good match or not. He kind of like kidnapped her, but moving on. Demeter mourned the loss of her daughter for a bit, and then she decided to go talk to Zeus. Zeus actually agreed to help her out, even though he was the one who kind of started this drama in the first place. Yeah, he was the one who helped Hades capture Persephone, so he's playing both sides. I mean, Zeus, do whatever you want, I guess. But Hades, of course, being smart, offered Persephone a parting gift, a pomegranate. Now, it is said that Persephone didn't eat it in the underworld due to her fear, but what some people might not know is, according to the story, if you eat any food in the underworld, you're instantly bound to it. So once she ate the pomegranate, she was bound to the underworld and had to stay there for 1/3 of each year. The whole Greek story is actually about how the season cycle came to be. So if Persephone would be in the underworld for 1/3 of the year, then of course we're going to have like winter and autumn due to the fact that Persephone brings in spring. And with all of that, like, she probably had like Stockholm syndrome, which is like falling in love with your captor, because she did eventually fall in love with Hades, which is crazy. But after years and years, the two made the underworld into an empire and eventually ruled over it as equals. Persephone, goddess of spring, had also become queen of the underworld. So it's kind of like Persephone is the personification of life, death, and rebirth in a way. And now, of course, there are several different depictions of the story, but this one's probably one of my favorites. The story itself, I think, personally, is like really sad because she was taken away from everything she knew and loved. And Hades, like, tricked her into going into the underworld. So, I don't know. We do have a special guest here, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Maggie Vincent.
So, what do you think of the whole, like, Hades and Persephone, like, debacle?
I mean, the fact that he kind of just kidnapped her and, like, nobody knew about it. Or, like, no one knew that, like, where she went. Like you said, she just went poof. And they didn't know where that she went. And they were like, oh. Like, it's just, that's interesting to me.
Yeah, like, what are your thoughts on, like, the whole Zeus thing, like, playing both sides? Like, why?
I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, Zeus is hard to, like, I don't know. Zeus just is everywhere, but
No,
is
for real.
nowhere at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, like, there's, like, literally thousands of stories about Zeus
That's
doing
so true.
millions of different things. So, I mean, Zeus is just kind of, like, there.
Zeus is like, I'm just going to play both sides, do whatever I want. Like, I'm king of Olympus. Like, I can do whatever.
Yeah, basically.
He's actually insane. Well, that's all the time we have for deities, demigods, and daring tales. So that brings us to our next song, Pomegranate Seeds by Julian Moon. Pomegranate Seeds by Julian Moon. Now, the Hades and Persephone, like, love story, if you want to call it a love story, is definitely an interesting one. So why don't we take a look at something a little more dark? Next up, let's take it to Criminal Chronicles. Today's edition is actually a serial killer who's local to our own area. Bella Guinness. Now, some of you might have heard of her considering she killed in both Indiana and Illinois. While she was only active between 1884 and 1904, her story is definitely fascinating. I actually once did a whole essay on her for a school assignment, so I do know a little bit about her before my research, but I did some more for you guys. So sit back, relax, and listen to the story of Bella Guinness. Bella Guinness was born and raised in Selbu, Norway. Her birth name was Brynhild Paulstader. I might have pronounced that wrong. But at the age of 21, she left Norway and then ended up settling in none other than Chicago. She was in search of wealth due to the fact that her family was very poor in Norway. While in the Chicago area, she met and married Mads Albert Sorensen in 1984. A few years later, their house mysteriously burned down. Now, due to the house burning down, they were both able to claim insurance money, which, back then was considered a lot. And now here's where things get a lot more interesting. After the house burned down, Sorensen died due to heart failure the day his two life insurance policies overlapped. Now, during the life insurances overlapping on the same day, they ended up getting a lot more money. So the fact that it was on that day he died was pretty suspicious. Now, there were a lot of people who believed that she poisoned him because she knew the policies would overlap, thus meaning that if he died, she'd get more money. Some also believe that Bella poisoned the two children she had with Sorensen, just because, like, she was crazy. Now, Bella did in fact remarry a little while later and proceeded to have another child. She also adopted one as well. Well, I'm sure you can probably guess what happened next considering the first two daughters. Well, the infant daughter and her new husband died. Now, like, for some reason, people didn't really get suspicious, but, like, I would be suspicious because all of a sudden people who are getting close to Bella are shortly dying. But I guess she was really smart and had, like, a lot of good skills in being a liar. Now, there are the bodies of several of her victims weren't found. I guess she killed, like, a lot of people. Like, I want to say, like, maybe over 50 people. But Bella Guinness had a farm which was located in LaPorte, Indiana, which is pretty close to us. Now, what she would do is, she had a pig farm. So if you can guess what happened to the people, like, she killed, she would kind of, like, feed them to her pigs because pigs will eat anything, including bones. So that's how she would hide the bodies. So back to one of Bella Guinness's last victims, Andrew. In 1908, after Andrew died, his brother, finally, someone, became suspicious of Guinness. He ended up setting her house on fire, which he later admitted to. Her farmhouse burnt to the ground, and once investigated, 4 skeletons were found. 3 were believed to be her foster children, and the other was unknown. There was no head on the 4th body, and due to the limited technology at the time, there was no way to confirm if it was Bella. And some people believe that it was her body, others are like, no, it wasn't. Like, she got away from the burning house, changed her name, maybe kept killing, but her death will forever remain a mystery. Now, personally, I do think that she got away, because, like, she was smart. Obviously, she killed a lot of people, so, like, she was able to cover that up, so I don't see why she wouldn't, like, fake her death. But she was a killer, which actually brings us to our next song, Serial Killer by Moncrief. Bella Guinness's death was just as mysterious as her. Now, we do have another mystery, but first, a quick word from our sponsors. Okay, that was a quick word from our sponsors. And now, as I was saying, her death was really mysterious, and we have another mystery, like mysterious death. Well, I mean, maybe death, it's kind of complicated. So now, some people believe that when Walt Disney died, they froze his body. So we're going to go ahead and talk about that. December 15th, 1966 is when the beloved Walt Disney passed away due to lung cancer. Now, some believed that once he died, his body was frozen through cryonic preservation. Cryogenic preservation is the low temperature freezing and storage of human remains. And now the question is, why would this be a big deal? Like, what's the point of this? Well, it's the fact that his body might be frozen is pretty cool, but to take it a step further, some people believe that he might be in a chamber under the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, or even under Cinderella's castle in Disneyland, located in California. Some people some people who do cryogenic freezing do it in hopes that one day, as their body stays intact, they'll be able to be brought back to life. And I mean, if before I died and I thought maybe there was a chance I could come back in the future, maybe I would take it, but I don't know. Now, like, people are probably thinking, why, you're crazy, Ashley. Like, but if you think about it, by the time we get the technology to actually bring people back after cryogenic, like, freezing, who would be around? Like, I feel like all my loved ones and friends would be dead because that could be, like, hundreds of years in the future. And I know, like, I would still remain, but, like, all my friends are gone. So now back to Walt Disney. Personally, I believe that he's frozen because the guy had a lot of money, and if you're rich, why not get a chance at seeing the future? Like, come on. But you're not here for that. So we all know the movie Frozen, right? A nice Disney tale featuring two sisters. So what you might not know is that people believed that Frozen was only made to cover up the fact that Disney is frozen. So the original name of Frozen was the Snow Queen, and some people believed that Disney Studios decided to change the name in order to distract people, because before 2013, if you looked up Disney Frozen, it would come up with several articles about, like, the possibility of Disney being frozen, which I think is crazy. But ever since the movie Frozen came out, now it's all just about Elsa and Anna. Now, of course, there's one only conspiracy. There's no real proof of him, like, being frozen, just like there's no real proof of him ever being able to come back to life. Ultimately, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, but feel free to let me know what you think. Now, real quick, I'm going to once again bring back Maggie. So Maggie, what are your thoughts on the whole, like, cryogenic freezing and all that?
Well, I get, like, if, like, they end up, like, getting the science down or able to do it, like, that's pretty cool. But everyone who is gonna decide, like, oh, like, I'm gonna, like, be frozen, like you said, all your friends and family are most likely not gonna be there anymore.
Exactly.
And you're gonna come back to a world that it's gonna be completely different from what you remember.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, like, it's almost, like, kind of what's the point?
Yeah.
But, like, I mean, like, who knows how many more, like, ideas that Walt Disney had that he didn't get to share, you know? Like, maybe that's what they're thinking, but I don't really know.
Like, I wonder if he would still be, like, have a consciousness, well, in that. Like, I don't know. There's so many things, like, don't understand about it that are crazy to me.
Yeah, I'm not, like, I only just heard about this a couple years ago.
Same.
And I was like, that doesn't make sense, really. I don't know. I'm not a fan of this theory. I don't know.
I'm not either. Like, if you're frozen, and even if Walt Disney still had ideas, I feel like in the future it would be completely Like, can you imagine Walt Disney coming back and then all of a sudden making like 5 different brand new movies out of nowhere? Like, that would be crazy.
Well, and it like compared to like from when he was alive, like the technology is way different.
Exactly.
So like just like imagine like what he'll come back to.
Like, the technology now is already different. Can you imagine like a couple hundred years in the future?
Yeah.
Like, once they get the technology to like bring people back.
Yeah, it'll be crazy.
It will be crazy. So the next song, of course, is a song from the Frozen soundtrack because like it only felt right. So here is Into the Unknown by Idina Menzel. That last song was Into the Unknown by Idina Menzel. Now, I have a special guest here who's going to kind of explain cryogenic freezing. So, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jake Lang, and I kind of got pulled on here to explain cryogenic freezing. So it's actually a really interesting process. The way it works is, so we have a lot of ways in medicine that we can preserve limbs. Like, let's say you cut off one of your fingers in an accident. You'll find the most common thing, people will be like, hey, freeze it and bring it to the hospital, and they can kind of reattach it. It's the exact same concept, basically to slow the cell degradation. So basically, these companies for cryogenics take a person, typically an older person that is quite rich and wants to be woken up in the future, and they'll just kind of essentially freeze them, just put them in a big old freezer. Now, they have ways to make this a lot safer, because as you can imagine, having ice shards in your bloodstream is not very good for your vital organs if you're moved even the littlest bit. So, Jennings says it's fine.
It's fine. It's fine.
I'm not sure I agree with that exactly, but now we have kind of a substance that they can actually put into your blood to make it a little bit more safe and kind of make it move around less, so you have a little bit more flexibility. So
That is
yeah.
insane. Like, that is actually crazy. So, like, they, like, pump you full of stuff to, like, freeze your body?
Basically, yeah, it makes it safer to freeze. Now, I don't know any examples of anyone actually being pulled out of the process and surviving, but it certainly is a thing that does happen.
Now, do you think that Walt Disney's, like, actually frozen underneath the castle or something?
I think he could be frozen. I don't think he's coming back.
No, there's no way. There's no way. I mean, if he did, we'd get some, like, pretty cool movies out of it, I'm sure, because he probably had more ideas.
100%.
That is crazy.
Anyways, thanks for having me. I'm going to hang out here with you for a little bit. And for those of you listening right now, tune in tomorrow for me and Maggie's episode. We're going to be talking about Hercules and I think some of the inaccuracies. Isn't that right? Yeah. All right.
Ooh, I'm definitely going to have to be sitting in on that because, like, obviously Greek mythology is right up my alley. So now we're going to go ahead and go to the forgotten story told by yours truly. And now I'm going to give you guys a little hint. This is going to be someone who is local to Indiana. So Harry and Dorothy welcomed their newborn son in April 12th, 1946. Dorothy worked as a secretary at her church, while Harry worked as a florist. They decided to raise their son in the north side of Indianapolis. As the boy grew up, he became known as the class clown of his school. After high school, the boy had originally planned to go to Indiana University, but sadly didn't have good enough grades. So he decided to go to Ball State in Muncie, Indiana, where he studied radio and television, which, crazy, where I'm going to be going doing the same stuff. So that's pretty cool. Back in his hometown, Indianapolis, he was the host of a talk show's children program. Yes, not show, talk, shoes. I thought that was interesting. But not only was he the host of that, he also worked as a news anchor and as a meteorologist. According to biography.com, while he worked as a weatherman, he congratulated a tropical storm on being upgraded to a hurricane. That's kind of going back to his roots as the class clown there. I think that if any of us were to say that on here, we'd probably get weird looks, but it'd be a good laugh though. So his boss was really not happy about that one, seeing as in, yeah, like I said, if any of us said that, we'd probably get some weird looks. But in 1975, he decided to move from his town to the large city of Los Angeles, where he wrote material for popular sitcoms like The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. He later became a guest host for Carson, and in 1980 was offered his own daytime show. Now, sadly, the show only lasted 3 months, but it was still very successful. I mean, nothing wrong with something being short-lived, but successful. Definitely gave him a legacy. It was so successful, though, that NBC TV offered him his own late-night show. His late-night show became very popular, especially with the younger audience. His signature topic included the top 10s list and stupid pet tricks. Like, who wouldn't want to see stupid pet tricks? I mean, personally, I like watching stupid pet tricks, like pets doing random stuff. Love that. And after working with NBC, fast forward to a few years into 2006, he decided to agree and work with CBS once again with his own late-night talk show. In 2007, he ranked number 17 on Forbes' list of richest men in the entertainment industry. Once he made the list once again in 2008 as number 14. As he continued to grow his career in entertainment, he ended up winning the Peabody Award in 2016, which is really cool. Like, personally, I would want to win that because that just looks like really good for me. Anyway, he continued to build his career and really make a name for himself and directed and produced several movies. Although he is best known for his legendary 13.76 million views on the Late Night Show with David Letterman. And now you know the forgotten story. Ashley Billingsley. Good day. So that last song was Everlong by Foo Fighters. And little confession, previous to doing this show, I had never heard that song, which I just got a lot of weird looks for. um, I've heard of Foo Fighters. Oh no. But, yeah.
I'm really thinking that after that, I'm going to have to rethink your position in anything to do with music, because how do you not know the Foo Fighters?
Because I am Gen Z. That is my only answer. My only response to that. I just got a lot more weird looks.
Hold on. Let me, go ahead, Maggie.
Well, let's talk. Yeah.
I grew up with that. I am also
didn't.
Gen Z.
I did not.
What?
So that means I blame your parents.
Oh,
Okay.
I mean,
that's my dad. My dad does know who Foo Fighters are, but I don't think he's ever showed them to me. So,
Wow, you've never just heard it?
yeah, I know it's a whole thing.
Wow,
Yeah.
I'm disappointed.
He's probably played it in the car a few times, but like I didn't know who they were. But you know, it's
Video games on your phone, not paying attention.
of course I'm playing video games on my phone. That's what I always do. Anyways, so there is actually a connection to Everlong and Foo Fighters to David Letterman. David Letterman had to go through a heart surgery in the 2000s, and during an interview, he said that like the song Everlong really helped him during his recovery. And the band actually ended up playing it live on Letterman, which was in the E.D. Sullivan Theater, which is where like David Letterman did his stuff too. So I thought that was pretty cool. Now that's it for today's Histories and Mysteries. And today, just a little recap, we talked about Pompeii, Hades and Persephone, which some people were like, oh, you told Hades wrong. But listen, there are multiple versions of the story. Like, I've come across at least 5 different ones. We talked about Bella Guinness, a serial killer local to Indiana, specifically like the port. Talked about Walt Disney being Frozen and the connection to the Frozen movies. And of course, we just talked about David Letterman. So stay tuned for next time, because we're going to be talking about Pandora's Box, Stonehenge, and not so local serial killer, and a couple more. So before we head off, I want to say thank you to Maggie and Jake for tuning in. I appreciate that. Now tomorrow, check out their show. They're going to be talking about Hercules, which I think is really cool. I'm definitely sitting in on there. Might end up putting my 2 cents in every once in a while. But this is Ashley Billingsley on PC3 Radio, signing off for today. Thanks for listening. See you next Thursday.